Okay, so again, let me ask you, how do you approach integers? Whether it's multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting, how do you approach it? When you're adding or subtracting integers, you may have dealt with number lines. And a lot of the explanations that we do, even in this sheet, we can use number lines. It's so easy to explain it based on number lines. It's not the only way, right? If you didn't like number lines and you like to think about things conceptually or use your imagination, here's an example, right? I did this yesterday. If I had a -3 and I took away, took away a -4. Conceptually, that's like I start with a -3 degree and I take away a negative temperature. I take away cold. So conceptually, if I have something and I take cold away, does that make me warmer? Yeah. So you could think about it that way, but you might not like that. Me, being who I am, although I am more visual, I didn't really like the number lines. I actually sort of think about it like this. If I have a -3 and I'm subtracting a negative, I've worked with brackets so much that I just pretend that's multiplying a negative times a negative, -1 times a -4. So I rewrite it as -3 plus 4 in my head. And what's -3 plus a 4? That's the same as a +4 subtracted by a 3. I keep the negative sign and the positive sign grouped with the number. And so that's how I do it. Up to you. It really is. Okay? Today's lesson is going to essentially be more review of, I give you a scenario, you figure out the math, algebra, or whatever behind it, and then you solve. Let's take a look at some examples. Okay? And I need my camera. So here it is. Every single method in which I describe it to you here, it's essentially going to do the same operation. That is addition or afterwards subtraction. So if I ask you a question, what number is 8 more than 15? That's an English way of saying I'm starting with 15 and what is 8 more than that, right? Just solve it. If you were to take this, it would be 15, and then you're adding 8 to it. And that's it, 23. B, C, D. Do the rest. I'll give you a minute. Go. Oh, gosh, yes. Come and grab a paper first. I will pause the video here. I'm going to get started really quick. Again, same as idea. Before it was more than. It's just plain English. I could rewrite that as greater than. I can rewrite that as higher than, depending on the situation. If I'm talking about how high is a cliff or how high is a cart in a Ferris wheel or how high is a roller coaster, it makes sense. If I'm talking about money, it makes sense to say it's greater than as opposed to higher than, right? If I'm talking about things like temperature, it makes sense to describe it as more than or less than or higher than, or depends on the context, but meaning is still the same. If I say greater than a -4, that means I'm starting with a -4 and I'm adding a 1 to it. The order in which you place the numbers can become very important if we are talking about subtraction. So some of you might ask, is it okay if I write 1 plus a -4? Well, you're not wrong, but you're not following what the wording is actually saying. And again, I'll show you why that's important later on. Part C, 10 greater than a -6. So I start at a -6 and I'm getting greater by a 10. So another way I could write this is, where's my white? Maybe I should write it like this. 10, a +10 is greater than 6, which would be a 4. Same thing here. 20, positive 20, higher than negative 25. So I'm starting at negative 25. I'm going higher than it. And then that's a positive 20. So the answer is a negative 5. It might seem simple, but again, if I change a single word, all of a sudden the order becomes really important. Here's an example. What number is 6 less than 13? So if you interpret the wording of it in English, it would be you start with 13 and I am less than by a positive 6. So it's basically 13 minus 6 at the 7. Let me try to explain why that's so important when you misinterpret verses. Okay. What if you literally wrote 6 and 13 in the order it was presented without actually understanding the concept? It would be just 6, and then, okay, less than means a subtraction. Okay, and then it says 13. So it must be 6 minus 13. Very different. Well, it's just a sign, Mr. Kim. Well, what if the context was money? What if the context was, a grade? What if context was your rank in a national qualifier? Like, you get the point. It's really, really important to read and interpret very carefully. So, F, G, and H. Please, I'll give you a minute. Please write the actual equation and solve it correctly. Okay, let's see. 1 is less than negative 9. So it's negative 9, and it's less by a positive 1, right? Didn't say what number is negative 1 less than whatever. So we just interpret it based on what we read, and that is a negative 10. For G, it's 10 less than a 4. So we have 4 minus a 10, which would be negative 6, not the other way around. And what is 10 less than negative 30? Negative 30 is where we start. Less than, positive 10 is how much we're taking away. That would be negative 40. Quick hands, quick questions? Okay. So here's one way we present simple integers in words. I can also present simple integers algebraically. It's really important for you to understand things like what is a subtraction of a negative, and so on. So here it is. Number 2 is all algebra. Number 3, all the way to the bottom, is going to be an interpretation based on word questions. However, instead of solving it, for example, number 5, all of number 5 asks you to explain whether a statement is correct or not, and it's all based on integers. We're going to take a break. As you work on this in class, I'm going to pause the video because I don't have to go any further than this, right? In terms of adding and subtraction. How much time do you think we might need for these 12 questions and some answer using words questions? Can we do this in about maybe 12 minutes then? Let's give it a shot. Let's see how far we've gotten, okay? My expectation is see if you could do all of the first page, and we'll see how far we've gotten at 105. If I could have your attention for just a bit, I did notice a couple of things. Yeah, we have to work on this. If this is something that's difficult, then it's essentially going to plague you for the rest of the year, for the semester. So I really hope people will get a grasp of this. Please do not underestimate its difficulty just because you've seen it before. You can't make careless mistakes on this. I'll say it right now. You can. You got to keep working on it until you get so used to it. Minus a negative. We've got a minus a negative here. We've got a minus a negative here. I'm going to do all of these questions slightly different to see what makes sense to you. You pick it up and figure out what makes sense for you. Here, -4 minus a -5, you have two options. One, you might think that it's going to be a -9. The other, you might think it's going to be a +1. And +1 is the correct answer. Okay? Let me approach this in an algebraic way. In my opinion, it's fastest to not visualize this as a picture, because sometimes it can be confusing. Why not consider this part? I'll highlight it as pink. Why not consider this part as a -1 multiplied to a -5? Right? Why not consider it as that? Because if you do that, what's a -1 times a -5? Miles? Negative times a negative. It's a positive. So we can actually rewrite this as that. And if you get the hang of every time you see a negative bracket, a negative in front of a bracket and a negative inside a bracket, if you train your brain to interpret that as a positive, you won't make that mistake. So the answer is going to be a +1. Same for part C. I personally think it's the fastest way. -8. There's a -1 multiplying to the bracket. So this bracket becomes +4. And I got a -1 multiplying to a positive. Someone said it, -4. +4, -4, they're going to turn into a Z. The final answer is -8. Okay. Get into the habit of it. Try this. What happens here? I'll give you 10 seconds. Simplify the signs so that you don't make careless mistakes. Olin, want to try it? Might as well, right? It's probably revamping your thinking a little bit. So what would this simplify into? Well, yes, that's a +4. What about that part right here? It is a -15, right? Positive times negative, that's a -15. And what about that? That's right. And if you are able to simplify the brackets, you won't make careless mistakes. This becomes a 0, right? Negative and positive are the same number. Your final answer is a 4. So whatever question they give you, or whatever question you write, right? Whether it's up here and you're writing your own question, or the question is given to you, simplify it after, so you don't make careless mistakes. Like, you know how to do this. It's just the symbols might be annoying to you. I'll give you a few more minutes before I write up all the answers. See if you can finish this off in the next 3 minutes here. And everyone, as I present to you the answers for the first question, please do not concern yourself with speed. If you've ever played any sports, or if you've ever done any form of working out, you will have always heard your coach or the person teaching you or helping you say form before speed. You do a push-up. Form is very important. No matter how hard or how many you do, if your form sucks, not only are you not working out the muscles, but you're probably hurting your joints, your bones, and you're destroying your body. When you're doing your squats, if you don't have proper form, you're not working on your legs and your butt. You're busting your knee tendons. Okay? Very important. So do not worry about speed. Speed will come the better you are. Okay? And please note that the answers are available online. Let's take a look at the back. Actually, well, the answers are available. I want to move on because this time today, I really want to give you a bit of a break to just, mellow out before your last class. Let's move on to the second page where we talk about multiplication and division. Specifically, I think you can do 8 and 9 on your own for homework. I want to look at some of the actual questions as demonstration. You have learned in the past, just by memorization, and I think it actually is easier to do it this way. I could be wrong. You've been taught that if you have same signs, the answer is a positive. If you have same signs multiplying, the answer is a positive. But if you have different signs multiplying, it is a negative. And you have different signs multiplying, it's a negative. But this as a rule, in my opinion, could become even more confusing. What if you have a situation where you're multiplying more than one number? So I'm going to take what you know and extend it. What if you had a negative multiplied by a negative multiplied by a negative? Yes. Right. So moving left to right, negative times a negative, you already know is a positive number. So that becomes, I'm going to highlight it. This part right here becomes a positive times a negative. It becomes this. And so from here, what's a positive times a negative? Again, you look right here. It's two different signs. It's going to be a negative. Right? So this is what I mean by not just memorizing rules, because whatever the rules are, you need to also have the brains to apply it to situations you might not have seen before. So don't take these rules as, oh, I've never learned that, so I can't do it anymore. You have to start thinking creatively. How can I apply what I've seen here into situations we've never seen before? All right. And that you're going to hear me say again and again, applying it to situations you've never seen before. So a negative times a negative, and then 3 times 2. There it is. Jump over. Let's do a division. A negative divide by a positive, same idea as in multiplication. 18 divided by 18. Okay. Jump all the way down. If you want to use a calculator, you can. A negative divide, so I'm doing W. A negative divided by a negative. 91 divided by 13. I don't expect you to know that. You can use a calculator if you want to, but the answer is 7. Okay. Any questions about integers? Well, some people might just need some more of that practice. We have 25 minutes before the end of class. Your homework is just this page. Remember, the answer key is already given to you. And so it is going to be an honor system where I honestly hope you will give this a shot, especially if you know you could use a bit of practice. Right? You got to take ownership on your own. Take it away, take the responsibility away from me as a teacher and make it your own, because let's be honest, I'm out of your life in about 4 months, right? I'm gone. You never have to see this ugly face again. It's up to you. So let's get to work. And call me if you need help. I am stopping the recording now.